And by look, I mean waveforms. There we go. Greetings, everybody. Just give us a quick second for the stream to come up and for people to get here, and I think we'll be good. I know that we have one person here that will probably want to talk hentai, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen tonight. However, we are talking a fandom that has a lot of fan art, so it's possible. It's possible. We might get into some Sora and Riku action. I'm not sure. There might be lots of unzipping of pants. We're not sure.
Well, depends on which zipper, because every outfit has like a bajillion zippers.
The only one that matters is the one that Riku comes up and says, Sora, you need to unzip my pants.
But then Sora responds with the same question. Well, which one? There's like a bajillion zippers here.
Then you just add Lee in there, and he's like, what are you guys doing?
Here's where my zipper is. Got it memorized?
No. I got a zipper here, a zipper here, a zipper here. Which one? There's one for all of you.
I'm just saying, guys, you haven't read the right fan fiction.
Yeah. There's a reason that basically Kingdom Hearts kind of is the deviant. Basically, it made deviant art when you really think about it. I mean, the site existed, but yeah. Yep.
It's the joke that I have with my wife. It's just like all of a sudden, and then Riku came out of nowhere and said, Sora, unzip your pants.
And poor Kari's the third wheel of the group.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, no, she's the home wrecker now. Remember, she's the home wrecker, according to the Kingdom Hearts fan base after E3. She's the home wrecker because she's off dating Lee. And then everybody's like, what?
Yeah. A friend of mine put it best. Kingdom Hearts very much is the Twin Peaks of the Square Enix world.
I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen Twin Peaks, but you know what? I have heard of the insanity.
Yep. All that's missing is a David Lynch directed movie that everyone hates.
Well, there you go. All right. I think we've waited enough time for people to get here, so let's just go ahead and get things started. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome to Why We Geek, the podcast where we take a specific fandom, a specific piece of geek culture, and we dissect it, we analyze it, and we show why we love it. And tonight we have a very special treat, as we are literally just over 24 hours from the release of the newest entry in this series. And the wait has been, well, I think ginormous is not even adding any weight to it. It's been 14 years long for some fans, and it's at minimum 7 years. And so at that point, we are going to be diving into the ever-beloved and ever-convoluted series that is Kingdom Hearts. I am, of course, your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody's had an awesome holiday weekend, or awesome holidays, because we haven't been around since December. I hope my panelists as well have done that. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and introduce the panel so we can get into all of the Kingdom Hearts goodness. And starting from my left, if we didn't allow her on this podcast, I'm not sure that I would survive the next day. I'm not sure that I would be able to be allowed to live the next day.
The divorce papers would be on your bedside.
And the life insurance policy that I took out that I didn't realize that I took out.
Well, yeah, a pillow would be quicker, all things considered. Just like putting the pillow over the face, just waiting for him to stop moving.
So without further ado, this is actually the first time she's shown up on a live stream. This is the first time she's shown up on a Why We Geek live stream. Andrea, my wife, how are you doing?
I am doing good. How is everybody?
We're tired. And especially 14 years long tired.
Yeah.
Waiting. Well, I'm okay. I've done this waiting before, but everybody else is like, we can't wait anymore.
Yeah. So I'd say a better word for the wait would probably be excruciating for some.
Something to that extent, yes. And then, of course, we are also being joined by Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, and all of his good game, and also Gaming with the Geeks. I should probably point this out, of Silent Hill. Stephen Romney, how you doing tonight?
Oh, doing pretty good. I mean, kind of tired, but mostly used today to kind of relax a little bit and prepare for some other projects I've got cooking.
All right. And then we're also being joined by another favorite from 2018. You have been on for, I think, 3 or 4 podcasts at this point for Why We Geek. And we have the Art of Anime on YouTube joining us tonight to talk some Kingdom Hearts. And unfortunately, like most podcasts in the middle of winter, he unfortunately is kind of under the weather. So without further ado, Art, how you doing?
I think that's...
It's all right, man. This crap happens. All right, so I guess that's how he's doing. He's just not feeling good. Oh, I'm sorry, man. Okay, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into this. So tonight we're talking Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is a franchise that is beloved by some, horribly convoluted by others, and absolutely hated by the rest. And it's just simply because they're sick and tired of hearing about it from 2018, which is a valid argument, but nonetheless, this is a big moment where we're going to have the first game in 14 years, at most 7 at minimum, for people to be able to finally get some closure into what Tetsuya Nomura has labeled the Xehanort arc. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and start Why We Geek the way that we have started it numerous times before, which is, what was your first time experiencing Kingdom Hearts? And also, what was the game that made you a Kingdom Hearts fan? And I'm also going to add in a third part of that question specifically for Kingdom Hearts, which is, what is the one aspect of it that drew you in the most, in particular? So at that point, it could be the fusion between Disney and Final Fantasy characters, or it could be the gameplay itself. That's up to you. And for me, I'll just go ahead and start things off in the most boring way possible, because I came in with everybody, or with majority of the fans that I know. I came in 2002 when Kingdom Hearts hit the air for the first time, and I was actually coming in very skeptical, because I was a big Final Fantasy fan, and I was one of those guys. I have no problem admitting I love Final Fantasy so much that when I saw a game that had Cloud from Final Fantasy VII with Donald and Goofy, I went, what kind of sacrilege bullshit is this? Okay. I went full purist. I have no problem admitting that. And over time, as I started to see the trailers that were coming out for Kingdom Hearts, and they were, compared to now, they were few and far between. Eventually, it just kind of won me over, and I decided to give it a shot. And I'm not going to say that the first game bought me by any stretch of the imagination. The first one that hooked me on the series, like permanently, where I had to know all the story, was 2. I mean, for crying out loud, I didn't play the Game Boy Advance game until it came out on PS2, kind of thing. But 2 was the one that kind of sold me on the gameplay, and the game that made me a Kingdom Hearts fan was one of the handheld entries, as it's, in my opinion, one of the better combat systems that the series has had, which is Birth by Sleep. I've always loved that combat system, and I love that it got fused into later games and even into the Kingdom Hearts 3 engine. So I'm very happy that that happened. As far as the thing that drew me in, well, the thing that drew me in was my skepticism. I did not think it was going to work. And for some reason, I decided, you know what? I'm going to buy a game and show why it doesn't work. And then I became
show why it doesn't work, huh?
Yeah, that didn't really work, did it? No, it really didn't. So, Andrea, what was it's your turn now. So what was your first experience? And then what made you a Kingdom Hearts fan, and what feature was what drew you in?
I seem to recall, didn't you and your brother do the challenge of like who was going to get through Kingdom Hearts at one point?
We did it for 2.
Okay.
Because at that point, like I played Major Cynic and wasn't even going to get to, because as far as I was concerned, Kingdom Hearts hadn't sold me.
Well, because I remember you talking about that, and I never knew what it was really. But then when you were kind of explaining it to me, I thought I would like to give it a shot, So I went and got like the
In
first
fact, if I remember correctly, when I was introducing you to my family, that was the night that my older brother showcased Kingdom Hearts 2 to me and my sister. and tried to show us that, this was actually a pretty decent game. And shortly after that, I think that challenge happened. But yeah.
Yeah. So when you guys were kind of both, playing it, so you guys were going to see who's going to get through the game quickest, I was like, okay, I will maybe try this game out. And when I tried Kingdom Hearts 1, I was immediately hooked because I really enjoyed the story. I loved the characters. And I just loved every aspect, especially seeing how it evolved up to this point.
Okay. And then, so what was the aspect of gaming that drew you in? Like, did you say it was the gameplay or?
Mostly the story. Gameplay.
Mostly the story that did it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the genuine story, or just the Disney going through the Disney worlds kind of story?
I would say mostly the main story, but
Okay.
I mean the Disney side and and all that was great, but I loved the main story.
Okay. Stephen Romney, what was your exposure to it and all that fun stuff? So your first exposure to it, the moment or the game that made you a fan, and the feature that brought you in.
Well, pretty much I'm like many other people. I was there from the very beginning, and the first Kingdom Hearts game actually holds a very special place for me because, I mean, here's the stage. It's my birthday. My dad got me a used PlayStation 2 because that was what we could afford, and I'd been wanting it for a while, so we went to the GameStop, we got a PlayStation 2 after we had done the birthday dinner, and then upon coming home, I find that my mom had purchased the copy of Kingdom Hearts ahead of time, waiting for when we came back with the PlayStation 2 so that I could play it. And so not only was it like exciting for me that, oh yeah, they planned this out for my birthday, that one of the first games I get would be Kingdom Hearts. And so that's kind of why the first game really holds such a special place for me, was because of that, the efforts that both my parents went to, which was surprising for me considering my parents are divorced, but that's why the first game holds kind of a very special place for me. And I was of the right age where, because prior to that, I had never really heard of Final Fantasy. I never really played Final Fantasy. I mean, I had a vague understanding of it, what it was, because I knew it was a game franchise, but then The Spirits Within was in theaters, and I was like, oh, I guess that's kind of related, but it wasn't really on my radar because my household was mostly a Nintendo household, so we were more strictly like Zelda sort of stuff. But what drew me in, and this is before I even wanted to get the game, what drew me in was it started with the commercials, hearing the slow version of Simple and Clean, and just seeing this game where you get to explore all these different Disney worlds. I mean, the ones they pushed pretty heavily were stuff like the Nightmare Before Christmas world and a lot of these other worlds. And so I was of the right age where I was still a fan of Disney movies. Well, some I liked better than others, as is the case with anyone. But that was kind of what drew me in. Not really so much the Final Fantasy angle, but just the, oh, hey, this really cool looking game where you get to explore these other worlds. Because I had tried other Disney interactive games that have always been kind of meh. So this was the first time where there was a game where you got to explore the worlds of these beloved movies that, wasn't crap and wasn't limited to PC. And so that was what excited me. It was like, oh, hey, an actual game and not just a glorified activity mini-game fest that you play on your computer where you get to actually explore the worlds of these Disney worlds. And so this was kind of this was what introduced me to Final Fantasy and what introduced me to all those other elements. But yeah, and so I've been with the franchise since the very beginning. I kind of fell out of it because, well, with the games on so many different consoles, I wasn't able to play Birth by Sleep because, well, I backed the GBA and DS instead of the PSP. And so as for my understanding of the franchise, there are still some gaps missing. So for me, it started from the very beginning with the very first game, and I was of kind of the right age for it to make as much of an impact as it did.
Yeah, okay. And did you say the feature that brought you in?
Well, that's kind of the idea. Is like the idea of exploring these Disney worlds.
Okay, all right.
That you only see brief glimpses of in these movies. I mean, I remember especially the Nightmare Before Christmas world was one of my favorites. I also really enjoyed exploring the deep jungle with Tarzan because Tarzan, as a kid, was one of my favorite Disney movies at the time because prior to that, it was a lot of the Disney princess sort of stuff, and except for maybe Aladdin, whereas Tarzan had the kind of action stuff that I liked, that I kind of latched onto. And so getting to explore a lot of these worlds, that was what drew me in, is exploring the worlds of these Disney movies.
That had to be really disappointing that you only got one game with Tarzan then.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of was, but at the same time, with Tarzan, it's very much one game was enough.
Yeah.
Once you had cleared and saved that
especially
world.
now when you look at how many times worlds have been used in Kingdom Hearts games, like I'm a fan of the original Aladdin, but if I see Agrabah in a Kingdom Hearts game one more freaking time,
that and well, Peter Pan, but you know.
No, I would actually even say like Peter Pan hasn't been used as much as Agrabah.
At least Peter Pan, like Neverland, like they redid the whole thing and
yeah, they did.
That is true. That is true.
They did because the first one gave you like a ship and a clock, and then Birth by Sleep gave you a like full on Neverland. So you got changes from that, but Agrabah, you got the same old marketplace, the same old Cave of Wonders every stinking time.
Yeah, and honestly, it's probably for the best that Tarzan. I mean, I know the real reason was because Disney lost the rights and the Burroughs estate took it back. But honestly, I think that's probably for the best because this is coming from someone who actually watched the Tarzan cartoon somewhat religiously because it would be in the same block that would show Digimon. And so it's a case of, yeah, I can see it's probably best that it stuck with One World because after the events of the first movie, there just isn't really a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, at least with a few of those worlds, you had sequel movies to be able to cover material for.
Yeah, plus, honestly,
but not for Tarzan.
And with the cartoon, although you had some good stuff, Clayton was like the perfect villain for that movie. And trying to do it without Clayton, you need kind of that strong villainous presence representing the Disney villains in it. That's why Maleficent makes such a good antagonist in the Kingdom Hearts games because she commands this sort of presence that when she enters a scene, even if it is in a world, like it's very much a case where even if it's a world that she's not from, like when she's on screen, it's like, okay, you know that she means business. And so, but to kind of get back on the main point, it was exploring the Disney worlds, interacting with the characters from these movies that I had grown up watching. Because I mean, my family used to get the VHS tapes of Disney movies as they came out, and so we were pretty much. It was very much like the case of I was already a fan of Disney movies, and so naturally getting to explore these worlds and see the parts that you don't get to see in the movie was exciting.
Exactly, and another thing that also helped out with the gameplay for Kingdom Hearts that a lot of people don't necessarily mention is the fact that if you consider it, like how many action RPGs around that time were coming out that were basically considered more popular. I mean, you had the first Devil May Cry coming out around that time. You had Zone of the Enders, which was Kojima's first take on an action RPG kind of element.
Well, and the only other big contender that at least that had the all ages appeal would be The Legend of Zelda, which people still debate whether or not it constitutes as a role-playing game.
Well, yeah, it's fallen firmly into the action RPG category. So at that point, like these are perfect examples of why people could get into it. Art, where do you stand with it? What was your first exposure to Kingdom Hearts? The game that made you a fan, and then the feature that brought you in.
Well, I wasn't much different than Romney. I started with the original Kingdom Hearts, like longtime Final Fantasy fan though. So I kind of didn't really know what it was going into it. Like I kind of just saw a Square Enix RPG, and I'm like, oh, let me play it.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is probably the most optimistic way to look at it.
I loved it. I think the gripping point for me was literally just the rivalry of Riku and Sora and how realistic it was.
The rivalry that eventually became a bromance online. Like I can't even think of a bigger bromance online now.
Well, technically, even in the canon of the games, it's still very much a bromance. I mean, especially when you consider the events of Dream Drop Distance. So the bromance more or less is.
Oh, dude, as far as I'm concerned, 2 clenched it. That ending at the ending of 2 that clenched it.
And
but I gotta agree with Dream Drop Distance. That's going on. That's bromance, but it's on the like edge of romance.
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. Like the ending of Dream Drop Distance basically is the moment that wrote 1,000 fanfics is what happened.
Well, it's just funny that, Sora was always like, his main goal was to try and, not just find Riku, but find Kari because she's important to him. But then it ends up he's like, oh, well, Kari's safe and sound. But then he starts like almost breaking down in tears, like he's like, I finally found you, Riku.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Art. So the feature that brought you in.
The combat system. I thought.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I thought it was just it was reminiscent of Final Fantasy with the command window, and I don't think. Obviously, different Kingdom Hearts have done it better than other ones, but as a whole, I don't think Square Enix has perfected a real-time battle system the way they have Kingdom Hearts.
No, they really haven't. I mean, for me, like looking at it, I was a little disappointed that it wasn't turn-based, but that's just because that's how I knew Final Fantasy to be. So at that point, I'm like, well, why is the menu even there? And then once you kind of get used to it after a while, it's like, I understand why this is there, why they did it this way, so that Final Fantasy fans could have at least something to anchor onto until they got used to this new hack and slash gameplay.
Oh, completely agree.
So.
Well, until you get to Chain of Memories, where
don't talk about Chain of Memories.
Well,
we'll get there.
Yeah, right now we're playing Chain of Memories, and I'm like, I forgot how different this gameplay is because I'm so used to the
Let's correct this really quick. You're playing. I'm sitting there making Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh references.
True.
Yeah, pretty much, as well as referencing parking tickets. So the next question that we actually need to get into is we actually have to kind of dissect the two elements that make this series what it is, which is funny because the feature we're going to bring up first is technically not in this upcoming game. Nomura has decided that they're no longer necessary, which is disappointing to me because that technically is, even though I was cynical about it, what brought me into the game. And that is the next question I want to get into is favorite Final Fantasy character that was utilized within Kingdom Hearts. We'll get into the individual characters themselves. But yeah, the Final Fantasy characters compared to Disney's utilization was way less. So at that point, when you got to see a Final Fantasy character, it was a big event, especially for a lot of Final Fantasy fans who knew what that was. You probably walked in there, Andrea, and just like went, okay, who's that person? Why has he got a huge sword kind of thing? But for me, it was just like, because I knew that character. And in fact, that's one of like my biggest geekgasms is going through these games and then showing Andrea where the Final Fantasy references are. And for me, I'm just going to go ahead and say that, no, it's not Cloud, people. The one that actually, to me, was the most badass did not come until 2. And it was Auron in in Kingdom Hearts 2, being brought in as a fallen warrior in the Olympus Coliseum.
I love what they did with his character, and especially referencing like his stand against Yunalesca.
Yes, and not just that, referencing his history enough of that history.
This is my story.
Where I was actually one of those kids that on the not on the playground, so to speak, because I was in high school at that point, but people were coming to me and going, do you know what he's talking about? And then I could answer them because 10 had just barely happened and I knew the story fairly well at that point. So, and on top of that, the other thing that really made me excited for Auron was when Kingdom Hearts 2 announced that you would be able to have these team up abilities that would come up, these team up reaction commands. And we got one with us. And it was amazing. And as far as I am concerned, and nobody will tell me different, that is my favorite one from Kingdom Hearts 2, is being able to team up with Auron and just slash everybody into oblivion. So Auron for me. Andrea, what about you?
Well, since I haven't really had much, exposure to a lot of Final Fantasy, but that's on my list after I'm finished with Zelda, I can't really say, there is a specific favorite that came. But if I would have to choose, I probably would choose Leon or Squall, depending on how you want to reference him. But that would be mine.
The one that went from voice to voice to voice. And from what I understand, he's got a new voice in Kingdom Hearts 3. So, well, if he shows they've shown that he has a cameo, but I don't know. So there you go. So we have Squall, we have Auron, Stephen Romney.
Well, I'm going to kind of echo Andrea's sentiment where I felt, in terms of how they wove the character into the narrative, like the fact that they used Squall and the fact that they make a deliberate point of that he goes by a new name and basically kind of goes through these changes, it kind of added some weight to the fact of, hey, these are characters from worlds that have been destroyed, and naturally Squall as a character, as is implied in the first game, is like, oh, he tried to save his world, but failed and had to flee to Traverse Town. And naturally, that sort of thing still haunts him, especially when consider he's got the wings on the back of his jacket. So it heavily implies of, oh, that means Rinoa didn't survive what happened. So naturally, it's kind of one of those cases where I felt...
Which is funny because Rinoa's never made an appearance.
No, and I think the implication and why he has it on his jacket is that it may be, oh, she was one of the casualties of the world, of his world being destroyed. And I felt as a way of
really smart.
Yeah, because that's what I like about his appearance. And this was coming from someone who, when first playing it, I had no idea who he was. I just thought he looked cool. But as I looked into who his character was, and I'm just like, oh, wait, this actually gives the conflict that Sora is experiencing, it suddenly gives it more weight where, hey, Sora's world is destroyed. And you see Squall going by Leon to try to distance himself from his old life, which in his mind, and I'm probably reading way too much into this, but it's a case of, hey, he's trying to distance himself from his failure to save his own world. And so he's still fighting the fight, but it kind of shows of, hey, there's some actual stakes to this conflict here. And so that's what I like about what they do with Squall. It's like, hey, you see how the destruction of the world actually affects these people.
Well, Leon is also the other general assumption as to why he went by Leon instead of Squall is because along with the wings, if I remember correctly, I don't think it's in the second game's design, but in the first one, they utilized the lion that was supposed to be on his jacket in the back.
Griever.
Griever, but it was supposed to be so people then later referenced him not as Leon but as Lion because they thought he was the lion guy as far as they were concerned. They didn't know that his last name was Leonhardt.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a threefold reference because his last name Leonhardt is a reference to a character from Final Fantasy II who kind of mirrors that same mentality of, because from the start of Final Fantasy II, you have Leonhardt as part of the party. The party's main village is destroyed, and then he disappears in the battle. And it kind of, again, that reference kind of carries further of, okay, so you have Squall going by a name that in the Final Fantasy universe is associated with someone who failed to protect their hometown and carries that guilt with them. It's just, that's why I like it, because you have these layers that kind of shows, hey, this is an actual conflict that affects these characters, and some handle it better, like Yuffie and Aerith, but you can see Squall's kind of the example of someone who is adversely affected, but rather than just giving up, still kind of fights the good fight because it's just like, hey, I lost my home. I don't want to have this happen to anyone else.
Well, and the other thing that was really weird that happened with Kingdom Hearts is because of Squall. Because I go by Squall, guys. I only know him that way. Like you say Leon in Kingdom Hearts, and I just have to say Squall because I know who he is. But the other thing that I found really funny, I don't think it happened too much with 1, but it did with 2, where up until that point, Final Fantasy VIII was a dirty word to Final Fantasy fans. It was absolutely a dirty word. It was considered like there was a stigma for a while there that it was basically the worst Roman numeral Final Fantasy that had come out at that point, and simply because a lot of people just didn't understand how the mechanics worked. But Kingdom Hearts 2 and that Leon kind of sparked this new niche revival of 8 and people to actually go back and look at it. And so now when I talk to Final Fantasy fans who basically just kind of go down the angle of like, 8 is not as bad as you think it is. Like I played it initially and I hated it, and now I kind of like it. And a lot of I would then ask them like, what sparked you to go back and give it a second chance? Kingdom Hearts 2, or Kingdom Hearts in general is what did it. So it's funny, like what a lot of Final Fantasy fans considered the worst Final Fantasy kind of got a shot at redemption because of Kingdom Hearts that way. All right. And then, so we have 2 for Squall. I have Art, who have you got for your favorite Final Fantasy character utilized in Kingdom Hearts?
So I have 2, Auron for most of the same reasons.
Yeah.
But to differ it up a little, I really like how they implemented Zack into Birth by Sleep.
Okay, I'll give you that one. That was actually pretty cool.
Considering Sora meets Cloud at Olympus and Ven and Terra, was it?
Yeah, Terra.
Yeah.
Terra, I think comes across.
Or was it all 3 of them met Zack? I don't remember.
Actually, I think all 3, I thought.
I think so. Oh, crap, my memory's fuzzy now. But I know Zack was part of the whole Olympus Coliseum storyline. And I know he asked Aqua out on a date, and that was hilarious.
Yeah,
I wonder if I'll ever get to see it.
As soon as she gets out of the realm of darkness, then we'll see.
Hi, Aqua. Can we finally go on our date? What's this tentacle for?
Well,
you'll know soon enough. But no, that actually
the fan fiction artists more fuel, Adam.
I'm bad at that, but I like the fact that you bring that up because Cloud was a given. A lot of people don't realize this, but up until that point when Kingdom Hearts had been brought in, or the Final Fantasy characters were going to get brought in, Cloud was a given. 7 was still very popular at that time. In fact, the hype for the compilation of Final Fantasy 7 was very high when Kingdom Hearts actually happened. Because I think it was, 2 years later, we got Advent Children, the first release of it. So at that point, like, Cloud was a given. But then later adding Zack into Birth by Sleep, when Crisis Core was very popular on the PSP, was a good move. I would actually dare say there are a lot of 7 fans that no longer like Cloud. They have moved over to Zack. And for good reason. Zack is a really well-rounded character in that universe now. So I know that a lot of people are going to be disappointed that we didn't mention Cloud. And Cloud is okay, but Cloud and Sephiroth were kind of a given in the series.
Their appearances were more or less fan service-y, but to be fair, at least in 2, they at least found a way to make it work better in terms of like somewhat character development, even though it was still just, hey, recognize this stuff from Advent Children? We hope we recognized it too.
Oh, dude, that was the sole reason that people kind of gave a beef to Kingdom Hearts 2 is like, oh, this is just a perfect reason for you to redo the Advent Children skins onto Sephiroth and Cloud, even though Sephiroth was still working with his original Kingdom Hearts garb, because that was the only one that worked with the wing.
When Lance Bass voiced Sephiroth.
Yeah, that's the other thing that throws a lot of people off. Lance Bass from NSYNC played Sephiroth.
Yeah, but he also was the voice of James in Pokemon for a while before dubbing was switched over, so...
He was, in fact. He could have had the Inflato boobs, Andrea.
No, jeez.
That would have not helped NSYNC at all. But another mention that I actually want to bring up that a lot of people kind of sleep on, and it would be my close second for Final Fantasy character, is Tifa from Final Fantasy, or from Kingdom Hearts 2. And it's simply there because of her interactions with Sora. Because she's just kind of there. She's like, I'm just looking for stuff. And then all of a sudden, you just kind of go off and investigate another room. And she's like, oh, have you guys found anything in here? Nothing. And all of a sudden she's like, hey, wait, this wall's hollow. Bam! And Sora's like, I didn't see that coming. And even I looked at it and went, how did you not see that coming? She's like, she basically trained with the Goku of her Gaia. She's super powerful. And Advent Children was out at that point, so everybody knew she was a really good martial artist. Mm-hmm. So I would give a close second to Tifa, because I always love that moment. And what they did with her.
That was great.
Yeah. But there is still one that I have not been able to find the reference, or at least I don't remember seeing it. And that was, I can't remember which game did it, but Rydia from Final Fantasy IV is in it too. So we got into Final Fantasy characters. I can't necessarily opposite that and go with Disney characters. Instead, I'm going to go with your favorite and your worst Disney world that has ever been utilized in a Kingdom Hearts game. There's a lot, and some of them are deservedly at that point. But I'll go ahead and start with mine, and that is, and this is just because of how much of a geek I am to this franchise, and wish that more could have been done with it. When they announced that Space Paranoids was coming into Kingdom Hearts 2, that alone could have sold me. Especially when they had announced, not on the show floor, but at the booth, that Bruce Boxleitner was coming back to voice Tron. I was very excited for that, and was looking forward to the day when I played Kingdom Hearts 2 eventually to get into Space Paranoids, and I was not disappointed. It's still one of the worlds that I love from Kingdom Hearts 2 beyond a shadow of a doubt. And the in combination with that, because I had heard nothing about Dream Drop Distance, and when I found out the Tron Legacy was in it, I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. And they actually continued the story. They continued the Kingdom Hearts story of where's Tron? We can't find Tron. He's the friend that we know and love. Where's Tron? I love that whole concept while mixing it into the Tron Legacy plot. So that's my best is integrating rare stories like Tron into this world or this stream of worlds. My worst, this is not going to be a surprise to anybody, and that is Atlantica in all of its entries. Okay. This is coming from the guy that had no problem with underwater mechanics in World of Warcraft. All right. Bashir, I actually tend to like a lot more than the average WoW fan does. That was not my problem. The problem that kind of became the stickler for me was eventually what got done in 2. And that was the sing-along minigame that got brought in.
That was great.
I was not there with everybody else.
You probably liked the first Atlantic
I was okay
level.
I was okay with utilizing actual songs from The Little Mermaid.
But what about Sora singing?
But you got no. And Haley Joel Osment should feel bad for that.
Oh my god.
Because he wasn't singing as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying he was sounding horrible, but the way that they literally made that, it doesn't sound like he's singing. It sounds like he's talking. So they had to add in, I think, 2 extra songs just to fill it all out.
Weed is always green.
Well, yeah, you had Under the Sea, and I think you had Kiss the Girl.
Well, actually, you didn't have Kiss the Girl. Like, I think Under the Sea was, the only one. Like, Under the Sea and Part of Your World were in it, but then they added Swim This Way. Then there was the song for the quote unquote boss fight against Ursula, which was
a song for Ursula. And
then there was that song at the end of the whole thing, which was basically one big celebration song. Which
that's right.
Yeah,
Atlantica is there for me. It was just I can honestly say, like, for as much as people say like they would rather gouge their eyes out than go through the 100-Acre Wood one more time, that's Atlantica for me. I can at least tolerate the 100-Acre Wood and go through it and have a nostalgia fest. Atlantica, not so much for me, but a lot of that also might be biased because I don't like Little Mermaid. I just don't like it. Anyway, so now that I've pissed off so many Kingdom Hearts fans and they're going to be writing on my Twitter about it, Andrea, your best and worst Kingdom Hearts world.
Oh, let's see. Probably best. It's like neck to neck with either the Pride Lands. Yes,
I love that one too.
It's either that or Halloween Town in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Which, Romney brought this up.
Christmas Town.
Well, yeah, Christmas Town.
Christmas Town, but Romney brought this up, and I forgot to mention this too. Nightmare Before Christmas in the original Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2 was such a good decision because that's when Nightmare Before Christmas had like this niche level of fame, and people actually considered it like a cult classic. And so at that point, being able to do a Kingdom Hearts themed world around Nightmare Before Christmas was such a good idea and sold probably a lot of copies. So, okay. So you have those as the best. What is the worst?
I was thinking at first it was, I was kind of tired of dealing with like 100-acre woods, but if there's a minigame that I was so despising at one point would be in Disney Town in Birth by Sleep. That ice cream challenge, I was like up to my wits end trying to complete those challenges because I'm a completionist.
It's a small world after all.
Well, that one was easy. It was the one that you can get a special reward for.
You know what? There was a couple of times where I saw you doing that damn challenge and I about took away the PSP from you. I'm not even kidding. Like we were, and this actually happened not this year, but a couple of years ago, where for hours at like a New Year's Eve party, she was playing the ice cream challenge on Birth by Sleep because she had to get it done. She had to get it done.
Yeah, and then
people don't realize this. She's the completionist, but it's like an itch that has to be scratched for her.
I was like trying to do it over and over until I like, okay, I'm going to put this down for a while. And I come back like how many months, maybe a year later.
That our daughter at that point, who was probably 2 or 3, she was begging for her mommy to put down the PSP. And so there was actually a point where I thought about stepping in as a parent and just going, okay, you need a timeout from this, because you could actually kind of see the frustration building in Andrea as it went along. So, okay, I can understand Disney Town.
But I actually
ice cream.
I actually completed it finally on 2 characters, and I'm like, no, I gotta do it on Aqua. No.
Yep, there you go. Okay, so best is a tie between Nightmare Before Christmas and Pride Lands.
Yeah.
And then you have Disney Town and Birth by Sleep. Stephen Romney, your best and worst Kingdom Hearts worlds.
Well, I mean, the worst has already been discussed, which was Atlantica, which, I mean, at least in the first game, it was at least a world you could actually explore. It wasn't just, a retelling of The Little Mermaid with only the musical numbers. And
especially since you can actually interact as you're swimming. That was actually a great.
And I liked the narrative explanation they gave for how they had to change into those forms, and how they explained, okay, this is why they can change forms in certain worlds. It's Donald using his magic. And I liked how that intro cutscene when you first land on Atlantica, there's like, oh, hey, it's entirely water. We have nowhere to land. And then Donald's like, okay, hold on, let me do something real quick. And then you see them in the mermaid arms. It was like, hey, this shows actual characters using established abilities to.
And it was an actual really great way to introduce the fact that you would eventually have to blend in with some worlds. And so at that point, you had them becoming mermaids, for lack of a better term. And then later on, we got the Nightmare Before Christmas, like everybody looking like they're from Halloween Town.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a really great way to introduce that was going to happen.
Plus, the Goofy Turtle makes me smile.
And because of that, we now have Glossy Sora in Toy Box.
And there's also the Monster Sora tune. So
I like Monster Sora, but I think I've mentioned this to you once or twice. Whenever I see the Toy Story world, I cannot stop focusing on Sora's cheeks, because they are just like glossy, they've got this sheen on them. It's like, wow.
As for the best world, well, we've already discussed Halloween Town, so I guess the other world that I enjoyed, and it's mainly because of the music, but that would have to be Port Royal, the Pirates of the Caribbean world, because it was nice hearing them use "He's a Pirate" as the battle theme. I mean, the song is just so catchy.
So we're talking post-original Kingdom Hearts 2 release. Because that wasn't the case in the original.
Yeah, in the PS2, I think it was a whole different.
No, because they couldn't get the rights, and so
I'm pretty sure it was the original. I'm pretty sure it was the same song in the PS2 version.
Because I owned the CD. I owned the CD for the around the time.
It's the same theme, but it was not done by an orchestra. It was done within the Kingdom Hearts engine.
Yeah,
so at that point, it was like.
Yeah, which that's the version I remember is that version from the original vanilla release of.
See, 2. I'm with Gerard the Completionist. I did not like that original theme. I liked when later in like 2.5 and other things like that, where they actually brought in the original theme, and it did so much more for that, as far as I'm concerned. Like, that was the one theme that I didn't want to hear in those kinds, in that kind of chiptune kind of deal. I did not want to hear it that way. I wanted to hear it the original orchestral way.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm on the opposite camp, because I mean, I kind of liked the chiptune, because that's how the whole soundtrack felt, and it kind of made it feel consistent, much like how each of the worlds is like a nice little stop in these Disney worlds. And I haven't actually played the remix version of 2 yet. I mean, I have it both on PS3 and PS4, but so that's the version with the kind of the chiptunized, like synthesized version. That's kind of what comes to my mind. But yeah, like, as for like favorite worlds, that's one of my favorite worlds from Kingdom Hearts 2, because in addition to fighting like Heartless and Nobodies, you also got to fight the undead pirates, and how you actually had to lure them into the moonlight to actually defeat them, and how if you push them out.
That was an interesting mechanic. But I will say that I had a little bit of a beef with the later Luxord fight. I think it was Luxord that you had to fight, where you had to, in order to do damage to him, you had to collect up all the Aztec gold and put it back into the chest. Because for me, I always forgot that whole gold step, and so it took forever for me to beat him.
It was just a monster, right? Like, it wasn't like the nobody, right? But
it might not have been Luxord. It might have been.
It was just like
monster. But I always had a problem with that mechanic, because you had to deposit the gold in, and then you could damage it.
Yeah.
And I always forgot that step.
Yeah, I don't really remember struggling with that, but again, it's been years since I've played Kingdom Hearts 2, and again, Pirates of the Caribbean is another one of those formative things from my childhood with which I hold a lot of fondness for. So that could also be kind of the major reason why that world is also so interesting. And so, yeah, that would be my pick for like favorite world would be Port Royal.
All right. So, Art, your favorite, your best and worst Kingdom Hearts worlds that have been utilized.
Okay, so the best one, I don't know if it would really count as a world because it's a specific area between two worlds. If you know what I'm talking about.
Are we talking about the
Dark world that never was, or something like that? Or
betwixt in between. It's the portal where you fight all the nobodies and Axel has his last stand before.
Oh, okay, all right.
yeah.
I was wondering.
So Twilight Town to go to the world that never was.
Yeah, I always lined that up as a dark corridor. Like the dark corridors that they would take.
It's such a simple little area, but it's my favorite part of the game.
Okay. And then
but if I
that's
had an actual world, it would be the world that never was.
All right. So the first one that got brought up, the first Kingdom Hearts original world that gets brought up, and one that is actually very beloved. Like a lot of people were very happy when it came back in 3D, to be able to go back to the world that never was and be able to explore it a little bit more. And I think part of that is just because of the hidden trailer that was in Kingdom Hearts that kind of advertised that one game wasn't enough. You were going to get a second one.
And those trailers were a pain to unlock.
Oh, they all were. I have no problem admitting that. So that's the best. What is the worst for you, Art? Uh-oh.
The worst for me?
There we go.
Well, it's not Atlantica. I hate to say that.
It's all right. It's all right.
I would actually have to think about this.
Okay.
Jeez.
Well, I can give you some time to think, and then we can bring up.
My worst part would probably be, it's not a specific world, but it's just like the beginning of like your exploration of Kingdom Hearts 1.
Oh, so the Station of Destiny, I think is what it's called.
Unless like
the cluster of first worlds in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Wonderland and Deep Jungle. Traverse Town I love, but
well, if you like Wonderland and listening to that music, it's like, oh my God.
I was gonna say, like, the music alone already detracts me from Wonderland, so I can understand that.
Yes, the flashbacks.
Oh, geez, I hate that music. I hate it with a blinding passion, especially when we had to grind for Kingdom Hearts 1 and Re-Chain of Memories. Yeah. I heard that music just across the house or in here. It's just like, turn off. I'm so sick of this. Turn off.
Yeah, so I guess one honorable mention for like another world worth mentioning is what they did for Fantasia. Like,
that was really cool.
That was
that was really cool. There are a lot of worlds throughout all of the games that have been utilized so well that a lot of people just didn't expect to happen. I mean, for crying out loud, Fantasia 2000, like, because it was a mixture of Fantasia and 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it was a case where Sora got to visit one, Riku got to visit the other was kind of how it worked. And I think Sora got to visit ones based on segments from Fantasia, and then Riku got Fantasia 2000. That's kind of how they split those things up.
Yeah, so you had Fantasia getting brought in. Kingdom Hearts 2, I think the one that a lot of people ended up having some kind of like for, even though they were not sure if they were going to like it, had to have been like the Land of Dragons. So Mulan was a given. It had to have happened at some point. But I do know that a lot of people, along with the Pride Lands, loved the Land of Dragons and being able to go into Mulan's world, even though Mushu's freaking annoying.
Yeah. Of all the worlds that got the musical treatment, why didn't we get the musical mini game with "I'll Make a Man Out of You"? I mean,
know,
come on.
right? Like, "I'll Make a Man Out of You." That was perfect.
I would love to see that song, and
or another shocker that a lot of people didn't think that they would have a whole lot of particular love for that I know came up was even though technically you saw elements of it, or at least people thought they had seen elements of it, was Beast's Castle. A lot of people thought that Beast's Castle was officially not going to exist in Kingdom Hearts because of Hollow Bastion. And then eventually when you got Beast's Castle, it worked really well. And boss fights in there were actually a lot better than people thought they were going to be, kind of thing. Especially since I remember having arguments with people quite a bit of like, okay, so what are we going to get? Like, we're going to get a kind of like Clayton was possessed by the Heartless. You're going to get a Gaston obsessed or possessed Heartless. And no, they just kept on utilizing other elements of the castle and making those into boss fights. So
it was kind of cool how they used the furniture as like an escort mission in it too.
Yeah. So at that point we have the best and worst Kingdom Hearts worlds. It's time to get into the legitimate characters. And we're not talking the Disney characters. We're talking the Kingdom Hearts created characters. Which have basically we now have enough that they steal the show, whether it be the organization members or whether it be the original 3 that people know and love. What is your favorite and least favorite original Kingdom Hearts character?
The only true answer for everybody should be Keyblade.
Keyblade. In fact, I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of my favorite characters that has come out of this series is Master Xehanort, as far as I am concerned. And unfortunately, the reason he was so awesome is why I'm really worried about Kingdom Hearts 3, because Leonard Nimoy stole the show as Master Xehanort. I always want to just say Xehanort, but I love Leonard Nimoy's performance and obviously the meme Keyblade. And it really makes me worried because we've only heard snippets of the new Xehanort actor in Kingdom Hearts 3, but I just love Master Xehanort and the fact that they reutilized him in the story. As soon as we took out Xemnas and Ansem, we got Master Xehanort again. So he's got to be my favorite. But the other one that I'm also going to hand it to is Riku, because holy crap, Riku is one of the few best examples of a true redemption story throughout all of the games. You could literally follow throughout all the games. Yes, they have some weird quirks with him. For some reason, he can smell darkness. For some reason, he had an Illidan Storm Rage fetish. I don't know. But you actually had a really good redemption story being told with him throughout the games. Where, in my opinion, Sora kind of remains stagnant. They're now starting to do things with him, enough so that I'm excited for what is going to happen with him in 3. But Riku had that development consistently throughout the games, as far as I am concerned. And so I've got to give it over to Riku and his darkness-smelling capacities.
I smell the darkness within you.
Wait, I have to take off my blindfold.
Lead me into
and I turn into Illidan Storm Rage. me that's the joke between me and my brother, is like we looked at the blindfold and we're just like, okay, so the second he takes that thing off, he's going to be wielding warglaives, right?
You are not prepared.
Exactly. You are not prepared for my other image. So my best is Riku. My worst, it has to be the one that annoyed me the most, and that was Mr. Dance. Dance.
I'm glad we were able to take out with that.
I hate his boss fight. I hate the fact that we're going to have to go through him again when we eventually get there. He is the most annoying, as far as I'm concerned, the most annoying organization member. And for crying out loud, I had to sit through Derek Stephen Prince trying to make Vexen interesting, all right? Before people jump down my throat, okay? Derek Stephen Prince at this point had done Beelzebub. As far as I was concerned, Beelzebub.
Think about
Beelzebub, it was far more interesting than Vexen, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway,
I was a scientist.
So yeah, my best are Master Xehanort as well as Riku, and then my worst is Demyx. And it pissed me off so much when I saw him in the trailer. And so, why on earth would Master Xehanort resurrect you other than to just kill you over and over and over again?
Maybe because he knows he annoys the heroes. Psychological warfare. Gotta weaken them somehow.
I would not put this past Master Xehanort. Andrea, your best and worst original Kingdom Hearts characters.
Well, worst would be just basically, like you said, Demix was annoying.
Dance, water, dance!
And hard to take seriously. Like, how on earth did he end up?
I know a lot of people who literally complain about Darkness Within Darkness and Lead Me into Everlasting Darkness, but then when you bring up Dance Water Dance with them, they're like, oh no, that motherfucker needs to die. He needs to die in a lake of fire. The Ninth Circle of Hell is personally reserved for him.
Especially in 358 over 2 days. He's like basically just like sitting on the couch like, will you do my work for me?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And that's pretty much what he is in Kingdom Hearts 3. He's like, why do I have to go out to the world? So there you go. And your worst is Demix. Best.
My best is Sora.
All right.
Just because he's just the main protagonist of the game. I just love his personality. He's very optimistic. He always looks on the bright side of things. And he's just has a really good heart.
I guess the real question that needs to be asked is...
But he's not perfect, and he can be sometimes naive about...
I guess the real question that needs to be asked of you, Andrea, is would you pay his parking tickets?
Donald Goofy, I can't get the gummy ship in.
Well, this is the joke that we make in Rechat Memories is like, because everybody keeps forgetting things, we always just we insert for some reason kind of like your parking tickets, and then at that point it's just become a running joke.
And I kind of just love it that sometimes when things are explained to him, it just kind of sometimes goes over his head and he's like, what?
Yeah, pretty much.
Everything from the grid.
or we even have world
MCP. I don't get it, but
yeah,
you're
exactly.
probably right.
Oh, dude, he's still going to be a dunderhead in Kingdom Hearts 3, as we've obviously seen in all the trailers. Why is it so cold here? Wow, I don't even need to close my mouth to say wow.
Well, he's a JRPG protagonist. What do you expect?
Never forget when Riku passed the mark of mastery and Goofy was like, "Geez, Sora, you act like you passed."
Exactly.
Dream job distance. I just love when Sora's like freaking out that Riku just finally woken up and Riku's like, wait, this is wrong. It's the other way around. And he's like acting like, oh my gosh, you're okay.
Yeah. All right, Stephen Romney, your best and worst original Kingdom Hearts characters.
Well, off the top of my head, it's kind of a two-way tie. Like, one that I would consider kind of an honorable mention would be Ansem the Wise, partially because he's voiced by the late Sir Christopher Lee.
There's the other one that is like, no.
Well, that one we have already heard kind of how they replaced it, and even then, he's probably not going to appear in 3 because they decisively killed him off in 2 and in...
No, he's appearing.
That depends on how he's utilized in 3, but he does probably make an appearance,
he appears in Dream Drop Distance in his guise as Diz, and they basically have the voice of Xemnas do the new voice for Diz, who is Ansem the Wise, and I kind of just like his arc of him being like the instructor who saw his students go astray, kind of the...
Well, no, but what I'm saying is he's in the final trailer. Like, we actually see Ansem and Xemnas confront Ansem the Wise in it. So at that point we know he's there. I'm not sure if he's talking in it.
Yeah, which who knows, but I kind of liked like the arc they gave him where especially in how in the first game you find these Ansem journals and you think, "Oh, we've dealt with Ansem," but then you realize, "Oh no, that guy was an imposter," and you find the real Ansem and kind of how he tried to undo the mistakes he made. Is like, oh, hey, I should have been a better teacher. I should have seen that this was going to go south, but I didn't. So he makes the ultimate sacrifice to try to stop Xemnas's plans.
Yeah.
And it works somewhat, but it's
he's also one of the few characters that's had kind of a logical arc. Like you get to see him in Birth by Sleep and he's benevolent and kind. And that's the way he's somewhat cautious, but yeah, he's wise. But then when you get to see him as Diz and later on in 2, he's cynical and vengeful.
Yeah, and it's very much, he's one of the few scientists of the Kingdom Hearts universe. So everyone else is very much, you've got the magicians, the warriors. He's one of the few like analytical scientists who just tried to study the darkness, not tried to control it, not tried to like manipulate it. He just wanted to understand it, and unfortunately, he couldn't see the warning signs within the younger Xehanort and how all of that went down. So that's kind of my honorable mention. As for the other character that I enjoyed, that would have to be Roxas. Mainly because you kind of, the arc that you get presented in Kingdom Hearts 2, where he seemingly has a normal life, but then you just have that classic dilemma of, am I a real person? Especially with a lot of the dilemmas of the fact of, oh, well, Sora somehow came back. Roxas shouldn't, by all accounts, technically exist, but he does because reasons. And I just kind of liked his overall arc and just kind of how his tragic, kind of the whole tragic prologue of Kingdom Hearts 2, and just kind of how that framed of him slowly kind of, it's very much the classic case of someone who desperately wants to be human, but deep down knows that he'll never actually get to be human.
Well, and on top of that, a lot of the extra features that has gained Roxas the following that he has is a lot of those fans played 358 over 2 days. If that's actually how to say it. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but you got to see how he interacted with people before everything in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, and that makes for a nice segue for my least favorite character, and that would have to be Xion. Mainly because
the second most beloved and wanted to return character.
Well, the reason is that
all I'm hearing right now is you're talking about no one.
Yeah, and looking at, because Xion, I can
wait. Art, we all need to start simultaneously draw a tear from our eyes and not know why.
Yeah, it just, and again, it's not that I hate Xion, it's just more the concept of what she was supposed to be. Nomura needed to give it a couple more passes, needed to rewrite a couple more drafts, because Xion just felt like she was just kind of put into 358 Days Over 2.
Yes, as just a point of conflict.
Yeah, just a point of conflict, but didn't really add anything to the story. Because if she wasn't in 358 Days Over 2, and if it was just Roxas interacting with Axel, the story probably wouldn't suffer that much for it. It's just one of those ideas that they needed to go back to the drawing board a little bit, because you already had kind of a good idea of someone manifested from Sora's memories with Namine. And so then you just throw in Xion, which is like, why couldn't you have just had it where Namine kind of filled that role instead of having to create
and for me, Namine was that before Xion. Like, Namine to this day, I actually feel like has more importance than Xion. And it's not like I don't get that people want that resolution with her and want her to see her restored. They also want to see Roxas restored, and I completely understand that. But Xion, I'm just hoping that we can kind of resolve a lot of the convoluted nature of her in 3.
Yeah.
And finally answer a lot of those questions, because up until that point, when people would bring up how convoluted Kingdom Hearts was, I would literally point to things like Xion.
Yeah, especially considering that after playing through 358 Days Over 2, and I'm just like, so you mean to tell me that somehow, because Sora got turned into a Heartless, he generated not 1 but 2 nobodies? Really?
Yes.
Really? That was my reaction upon beating that game.
Well, technically 3, because for some reason, I've seen the argument actually happen that he also sprang forth Namine, even though Namine is supposed to be Kairi's nobody. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he had Kairi's heart in him, and since she's a princess of light or something,
don't care.
I know
he sprang forth 3 nobody. Okay, the definition that has literally been given throughout the fandom is a nobody is your body without its heart. Okay? And then the heart is what becomes the heartless, right? This Sora has apparently been lugging around 3 bodies, and we didn't realize this. Like his body is just a Xerox machine.
That's why his shoes are so big.
Exactly! That's why he has so many zippers.
Ven, are you okay?
But you see kind of my issue, and that's why I kind of consider Xion my least favorite, because it was definitely, I view her as kind of wasted potential, like a character that could have been a cool idea that Nomura just threw in because he thought it sounded cool on paper.
What you're saying is that Xion is Denzel from Advent Children? Oh, snap.
or, you know, the entirety of Advent Children, because let's face it, Kadaj is not really that great of a character either. So
no.
Like,
But the one, the problem is like to me, Denzel's like the perfect example, because once Shion walks into the game, you're not sure what she actually did for the plot, and when she leaves, you're not sure what she did with the plot, and Denzel's the exact same thing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, especially it kind of even cheapens the events of 2 when you think about it, because when
a little bit
Roxas is kind of journeying through his version of Twilight Town with Axel constantly trying to bring him back, and then you just see Axel just straight up mad with him, especially with the whole, oh, you remember me now? I'm so effing flattered. Not that he actually swears, but you, like, that rage that you see there with the inclusion of a character like Shion, it kind of just cheapens that. It kind of is just a case of, okay, well, it didn't really add anything. I mean, if it was just Roxas and Axel, at least there you could kind of understand the nature of Axel's anger over the fact that Roxas doesn't have any memory of him.
This is definitely something they have to fix in 3, because it looks like, according to the trailers, they've tied Shion a lot to Lee, and because he's technically the only one of the 3 that still exists. So at that point, like, they have a lot to be able to go over with that. Okay, so we have best and worst there. Art, your best and worst original Kingdom Hearts character.
Okay, so best. I'll get that out of the way. I'm also going to agree on Sora.
All right. This makes sense.
Essentially, like, looking back, like, I think the defining part of Sora as a character is in Traverse Town in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay.
When you first meet Donald and Goofy, and Donald tells him to smile all the time. Always smile. Just always be happy.
And then we get the weirdest smile ever.
Weird smile. But I think that's a defining trait of him that carries through all of the other games. And as you see his progression through Chain of Memories, through 2, through Dream Drop Distance, he's confronted with these situations where, when you think back to that, sometimes he's not taking that advice.
No.
And you just see his actions, and you're like, but Donald told you how to get through this. And Sora's just going through like the emotions of what he's experiencing. And maybe that's because he's got hearts connected everywhere.
It probably is. I mean, as the YouTuber Just a Pancake showed us all, Sora's family tree is kind of convoluted. So I mean, I can get where I get where you're coming from, but in that case, does that make you kind of dread 3, because it looks like 3 is gonna make him outright feel anger?
Because I think that's good, because when you reflect that back to Riku, it's kind of the opposite story, in like the same story in the opposite direction. Because
that's why in a lot of cases, in my opinion, like Sora and Riku have become really good foils for each other by 3.
I saw a really good comment about how the themes of each game like layer on top of each other, and it was just the 3 main games. It was Kingdom Hearts 1 is like innocence and naivety. You have Kingdom Hearts 2, which is the beginning of like adolescence and like exploration. And then you have 3, which, judging from what we have from like Face My Fears and Don't Think Twice, is looking to go in the direction of resolving your issues.
Yeah, resolution or closure.
Resolution, closure, and dealing with loss.
Yes. And frankly, that's, I think, where the series needs to go, especially for the amount of resolution that needs to happen to end the Xehanort saga kind of thing.
So to like follow up on that, I think Sora as a character, if he is to go in the anger direction, it goes back to, again, to Traverse Town, where Donald told him to be a Disney character.
Pretty much. It's one of those things that makes me kind of giggle too, because everybody thinks that that's so cringeworthy. They forget that a year before that, you had Yuna and Tidus laughing.
Well, to be fair, with you again, it's like those two scenes side by side. What a lot of people forget is they're supposed to be cringy.
Yes, they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be, but oh my gosh, like, but here's the way I look at it: is like I just sat through the whole faking laughing and then the cringy smile is like, no, I was prepared for this. I was prepared for this. All right, so we've gone over the best. What is the worst then?
I'm gonna agree with D-Mix. I can't stand that man.
Dance.
I just straight up can't stand him.
No. Consensus here, he is the worst organization member.
I don't even know what he does in the organization.
Yeah, exactly. That's why he's so bad. Like, you don't know what you don't even know what his responsibility is in the organization.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think the organization does either.
No.
His main purpose in the organization is to become a vessel for Xehanort.
He was the only one that I remember, like, people scrounged forever to find the real names of everybody that was an organization member, except nobody gave a frick about Demix. Nobody cared. And well, I think Nomura eventually answered and said, like, this is his name, but nobody cared.
I haven't seen exactly.
Yeah. Like, I know, like, my siblings and I tried to figure it out once when we kind of clued into the pattern of, oh, it's X mixed in with the letters of their original name, but we were all just like Medi, Dime, what?
I think that's what it eventually
or
was.
Something
was
like, I don't know, something.
Medi or Dime. So, yeah, nobody cared. Because everybody hated Demix, and he's coming back, and I'm pissed off about that. All right, so we kind of need to wrap things up because obviously the podcast shouldn't go that long. But in order to wrap things up, we need to go into the future. We are literally just a little over 24 hours before we all have Kingdom Hearts 3 in our grubby little hands, and we can just go nuts with it. Of course, unless you guys watched all the leaks on YouTube, then at that point I have to ask, what the hell is wrong with you?
Right? The only leak that I watched, because I needed to fulfill my curiosity, was Elsa singing Let It Go.
Okay, I'll give that to you.
The only thing I saw was just an optional boss fight. But
yeah, and I wish you hadn't, because that's why we got all the leaks.
Hey, I didn't care, but if I had to take the choice between watching an optional boss fight and watching the final Xehanort fight,
okay,
I would steer clear from any story-related stuff.
Okay. So for that, we have to look towards the future, and that is Kingdom Hearts 3. And the two questions that I have for it to kind of wrap things up are, what is the one thing you are looking, like one world, one feature, one thing you are looking forward to getting your hands on in Kingdom Hearts 3? And we'll start off with that. So the one thing I'm looking forward to as far as worlds are concerned, I'm looking forward, obviously, to dealing with the new Keyblade mechanics, because they are basically going to be replacing Valor Form. And I loved Valor Form and all of the other forms that came out in Kingdom Hearts 2. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on that and trying it out. But if I had to say a world I was looking forward to, got to give it to San Francisco. I am so happy to be going through Big Hero 6 and seeing how it dealt with loss and with grief and with regret, how that integrates into the story. So that's kind of my deal for it. Let's go ahead and turn things around a little bit. Art, what is the one thing you are looking forward to getting your hands on in Kingdom Hearts 3?
This is just a hope. Fixed flow motion combat.
I'm not sure if flow motion's coming back, is it?
It is. They mentioned flow motion is coming back. And I loved it.
I've not seen a single trailer that incorporates it. So
I loved it in Dream Drop Distance, though I do agree that, it had its problems, like dodge rolling into a wall.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're experimenting with stuff like that, you're gonna have some hiccups.
Right.
And I'll admit, I'll agree with you guys. I liked it.
Yeah, I liked flow motion. So I hope they work out some of the minor issues with it. Because I think it could be a good system, especially mixed with the new Keyblade mechanic.
Yes.
And the fact that they're returning the finishers from 0.2.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy about that too. Because when we haven't finished 0.2, aside from seeing the story for it, but I've not messed around completely with that engine, but I love what you can eventually do with it.
I feel like there's going to be so many options with the combat.
Because 0.2 existed just to give us a sample of what they were doing with that engine.
Yeah. So
gorgeous.
I don't think it'll be better than Kingdom Hearts 2's combat, but I think it could be a close second.
See, and to me, like the ultimate culmination of the mechanics is Birth by Sleep, because it brought, in my opinion, what made Kingdom Hearts 2's engine great, and then added it into it and made it kind of individualized per character. And I love the combat deck systems. That was amazing to be able to go out and do in my spare time. So there you go. So you're looking forward to Flow Motion. Stephen Romney, what is the one feature you are looking to get your hands on in Kingdom Hearts 3?
Well, aside from finally seeing how the whole story wraps up and how they find a way to apply enough tape to fill in all plot holes, I guess
it's okay. We've got duct tape.
Yes, Mickey Mouse branded duct tape. Get it while supplies last.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess one mechanic, and it was something from the early trailers. I've been avoiding like watching any like newer updates and trailers just in general to just not. Again, I'm trying to temper my expectations as I'm one of the fans that's a bit disgruntled at how long it's taken. But as for like one aspect, I don't know how the mechanic works exactly, but it's like the special attack summon things that are based off the different rides.
The attraction abilities.
Yeah.
Yes, the attraction abilities. That's something I'm definitely curious to see how it actually plays. Like not just like how it looks, but like how it actually.
So am I, especially. I had this leaked to me when just surfing through IGN one day. There's 6 of them, and up until this point, we have seen 3 of them.
I don't know if it's true, but aren't they essentially like they're not replacing summons, but they're basically going to be a second set of summons?
Yes, and they're situation based.
Yeah, and so that's something I'm definitely curious about how they implement it, especially kind of seeing which of the Disneyland rides they use. Granted, this is coming from someone who's actually never been to Disneyland, but I've only heard of the rides' names. So that's at least a mechanic I'm curious about how it actually factors when playing the game myself.
How many have we actually seen? We've seen Big Thunder Mountain. That's happening in
the teacups.
We've seen the teacups. We've seen the
roller coaster against Rock Titan.
The pirate ship.
That's Big Thunder Mountain, and then the pirate ship, and then the squirt gun roller coaster that happens from time to time, where it goes into full FPS mode.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
I know which. Like, I don't know what it looks like in game, but I know the ride that they're referencing, especially considering that we have the Toy Story world in this one. Because I know that ride at Disneyland, you would get the little blaster, and it's like Buzz Lightyear Star Command.
That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the Toy Story ride that it's emulating. So, yeah, and so we have 2 that we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah, and it's technically awesome. Thunder Mountain Railroad, not Big Thunder Mountain.
Sorry, I was saying it quick. But yeah, it's the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad that is in that Rock Titan segment, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Makes more sense than the Disney comic tie-in that Marvel tried putting out.
Yeah. So Andrea, the one feature you are looking forward to in getting your hands on in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Well, besides all the gameplay mechanics, I just want to know how the story will resolve itself. Yeah. I just want to see the whole entire, the fight between the 13 Darknesses and the 7 Guardians of Light. I really want to see how.
Can you see that we've been talking about this for months?
How Sora ends up, being able to give Ventus back his heart, and hopefully it's not as dramatic as the last time. But
all right,
and I'm just hoping that maybe we'll get to know what was in that box.
Okay, so that's kind of leading into the last question that we have, and then we actually have a question from a listener, and a good one that I actually kind of want to bring up. So the next question that I have is, what is the one question amongst all of the questions in Kingdom Hearts? What is the one question you must have answered? And for me, you kind of just broached on it. What's in the box? How does the Keyblade work? The only things that I care about are how that box comes into play and how on earth does the Keyblade, the actual key, the X-Blade, come into play? Because I have some theories on it, as to how the X-Blade comes into being for this. I have a feeling it's going to be there so that we can go to Kingdom Hearts and all that. But those are the two things that I want to see above all else. And if there was a resolution that I wanted to see happen, is that, again, I love Birth by Sleep so much that I would love to be able to see some kind of a reunion between the three friends actually happen. I'm not sure if I'll get that. Maybe it'll be in the afterlife. Who knows? But there you go. Art, what is the one question amongst all of them that you must have answered?
So before I tell you that, I just have to say that Tetsuya Nomura did say that the ending might be hard for some people to handle.
It did. Yeah, he said that a lot of people might cry.
So the thing I want answered isn't really relevant to like a lot of like the characters we've even talked about. I want to know how Lushu and the Master of Masters tie into everything.
And I think that's also going to be very connected to the box and the X-Blade, because a lot of that lore is tied into Lushu and the Master of Masters.
Because to this point, now I haven't played Union Cross all the way through, so I don't know if there's more in that back cover didn't touch on.
There is, yes, but it's not complete. They've even said that after Kingdom Hearts 3 releases, there will be a Union Cross update.
Okay.
So, the only reason that they held back the update is because it's going to bridge the gap between Union Cross and Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we have tons of questions there that haven't been answered.
We just see them as cloaked individuals. We have no idea who they are.
Yes, I have some speculation as to who Lushu is. I'm not sure about the Master of Masters, but I have some speculation as to who Lushu is.
I had some thoughts with some of them.
Yeah. I have tons of theories on a lot of these, and if we actually maybe I'll do like a second live stream where we just kind of discuss our theories, maybe before or after we get there in Kingdom Hearts. But okay, so we have the Master of Masters, we have Lushu, we also have the X-Blade as well as the box. Stephen Romney, the one question you want answered amongst all of them.
It's hard to say, given that I haven't played through all the games, and even as you were all discussing all that stuff, I'm just like, whoosh, there's clearly a lot of research I still need to do. Yeah. I'm just kind of in the simple camp of, okay, how is this story going to end? Like, I guess here's the way I phrased the question. Will all of this eventually make sense?
No.
Who's going to die? That's also
the question is, will they be coming back?
Yeah. Or
I don't know. No, with Nomura, death is kind of permanent.
Well, unless it generates some sort of sequel.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, a lot of people don't take this into consideration, and I don't think he's ever redacted this statement. Nomura has said that if there was going to be another game, it would star Sora. So at that point, like, if they were going to consider it, then I know a lot of people are speculating right now that Sora will die. Then at that point, how does Kingdom Hearts 4 work? That's my only question on the matter, because
I never thought they would kill Sora. I do feel they'll kill Riku, though.
Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, there are ways they'd probably be able to pull their way out of it. I mean, again, with Kingdom Hearts and how confusing and how just confusing is the only word to describe it. They'd find a way. I mean, one thing that I would hope Square would consider, but I doubt they will because they aren't the greatest at pre-production, would be maybe after Kingdom Hearts 3 and all of that is over and done, is maybe consider handing the franchise to some newer blood and think like, okay, now that this story is...
could we please do that so that Nomura can get some rest?
I mean, he's not going to get rest. He's got to go over to Final Fantasy VII after this.
I know.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we've already made this joke on the Geek News podcast. Is like they need to officially get reporters away from Nomura, because when reporters get near Nomura, he adds on to his project pile. I don't know if you actually saw this quote, Art, but this will make you giggle because, we already all speculated he's going to the Final Fantasy VII remake to finish that up. But then after that, he'd get a break, right? Well, a reporter went up to him and said, would you be interested at all, since we're coming up on the anniversary of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, would you be interested in remaking any of those games? His initial response was, oh, I'd love to remake them all. That's already 5 projects.
It's okay. They'll probably throw him on Final Fantasy X-3 too.
You forgot 12-2.
Well,
did they actually say anything about 12-2? Because 10-3, like Square actually commented on.
Oh yeah, they actually said that might happen.
Well, yeah, and I mean, they've actually have released story material that, like, there's at least some idea of what they would do, because there was like the audio drama novel released in Japan that said, like, oh, here's what happened after the events.
That was actually translated into English and put on the HD remaster.
Okay.
So at this point, it's just like, okay, reporters need to stop talking to Nomura because he keeps on adding on to his workload. He will literally die in his desk. Yeah,
and honestly, like, I can see them maybe consider handing it off to just another person, kind of like what they had to do with 15, where it's like, okay, Nobita, let's just step away. Tabata, can you bring this norm now? Although I know Tabata has left Square Enix to start his own company. That would be the direction I would want to see as after this whole Xehanort arc is done, is just be like, okay, let's give this franchise to someone else at Square Enix.
That might be actually the better idea.
But you run into a problem. They still need Tetsuya Nomura as a character designer.
Not necessarily. There have been some artists at Square that have been pretty close to mimicking his design, because I know with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they wanted to get Nomura on board, but they had to basically have an artist who worked with Nomura do a majority of the designs, and so.
But I see what Art is saying is, like, they will find a way to rely on Tetsuya Nomura, and then at that point he gets no sleep.
Yeah, I mean, unless they decide to do kind of what they did with the original Resident Evil 2, where it's a case of, okay, you've got the director working on stuff, and then Nomura just is basically a producer who just signs off on concepts, and that, like, if that's his only role, I can see that working.
Well, that was supposed to be his original role for 7 Remastered, and then they gave him a much more involved one after the CyberConnect 2 deal fell through.
But that's more because of things falling out with them and CyberConnect 2. But I think that's honestly what needs to happen if they want to keep Kingdom Hearts going, is give it to some other hands. I mean, honestly, if we were to get a break after 3, I would want to see maybe a return to The World Ends With You, at least as a nice little palate cleanser, because
it might be, All right, so we have Romney's.
Which
Andrea,
basically is, will any of this make sense? That's my question.
And it's a very good one. Andrea, what is the one question you must have answered by Kingdom Hearts 3? Otherwise, it has failed.
It has failed.
I'm adding pressure onto you.
Just exactly how much of Union Cross is connected to the Kingdom Hearts series?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Because if we remember in Union Cross, Ventus was a part of that, and that took place how many years even before Birth by Sleep?
We lost count.
He must have been in a place where basically time flows way.
I wish a lot of people would see this live stream, because that's the look that we just blew Romney's brain.
Well,
like, his brain has literally blown and he's like, done. I'm done.
In Dream Drop Distance, there's that conversation between Neku and Riku.
Yes.
That, if we recall, when Riku is trying to figure out what's going on between his dream state and Sora's dream state, Neku mentions that if the worlds were or no, it wasn't Neku, I think it was Joshua. Joshua mentioned that if the worlds were in fact parallel, time would be flowing in the same rate, but multiple different worlds all see time differently.
Exactly.
So the time that we may be seeing in the worlds of Union Cross may be flowing at a different rate than the ones later down the line.
We can just slowly see the fuses blowing on Romney. He's like, boom, 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 boom.
Well, it'd be just like, well, here you have the somebody of Larxene, you have the somebody of Marluxia, and you have Ventus, and you're like, they would be really, really old by this point, but no, they look like as youth, like they drink from the fountain of youth and never aged a day.
Okay, this story is already enough. Please swear, do not include time travel. You'll just my brain can't handle this.
I think we killed
Plus,
Romney, they already did.
Plus, there was also one piece of thing, like,
and it has rules.
His name is Xehanort.
But there is one other thing that caught my attention, and I don't remember if it was in the black cover movie.
Back cover, yeah.
Yeah, or if it was in the game itself. Like there was a text saying, you know, how important the Book of Prophecies was that was needed to shape.
Well, we know that it's a relevant element in Kingdom Hearts 3 because Maleficent is searching.
Well, yeah, but apparently it somehow has the, I don't know, the powers of need to be able to shape and create worlds or something like that. Makes you kind of wonder, will Sora, if everything comes to total destruction by the end of the war, do you think maybe Sora would use that to help?
So that's another theory that's out there. Sora becomes God.
Maybe what happened was at the end of Union Cross, when like the Keyblade War happened and all that, maybe the Book of Prophecies, you know, destroyed everything, and somebody rebuilt everything.
Yeah,
so,
it makes you wonder.
That's technically what happened.
So yeah, basically the Book of Prophecies is the Infinity Gauntlet.
Basically,
kind of.
But Sora would probably, you know, if like his friends got killed, and that maybe he would find a way to reverse the whole thing.
We've seen the most recent cutscenes in Union Cross. They've actually made kind of an interesting jump to be able to justify it. So I don't want to spoil it too bad because I think we're just blowing fuses on left and right.
Well, especially when you consider how in the future Square stated they wanted to incorporate Star Wars and Marvel into future Kingdom Hearts games. I'm just like,
they already have.
To be
Big Hero 6 is Marvel.
Well, yeah, but I'm meaning like the characters everyone knows, because that was because I canceled Kingdom Hearts game that they actually had designs for a Star Wars themed world, and so I'm just looking at this. I'm just like, this is like the unholy Shoggoth creation of fanfiction.net.
This is one of those things that I actually do have arguments with. For Kingdom Hearts 3, like they really needed a Star Wars in a Marvel world. I'm just like, they have a Marvel world. No, they don't. Yes, they do. San Francisco. That's Big Hero 6. What are you talking about? Big Hero 6 is based on a Marvel comic. No, it's not. Yes, it is.
I have a hard time really imagining integrating a Star Wars or a Marvel for some reason. And
you could
Kingdom
do it,
Hearts.
but you can't do it here.
I think it's just.
Yeah, like. And I mean, like, the Star Wars one makes a bit more sense, especially as Art was explaining about the arc of Sora kind of falling more in anger. I'm just like, okay, now having a Star Wars world suddenly makes sense, especially if you were to have someone like Sora who's getting angrier and angrier, and then having him encountering a character like Anakin as he's starting to turn. I'm just like, okay,
that's the argument that I kept having is like, if you were going to do a Star Wars world, you had to do like Episode 4 to be able to have it all make sense, or at least have like an Episode 5 kind of feel. But I feel like the first thing that they would do is they would go for Force Awakens, and I don't know if I would go that route.
The route I would see making the most sense would probably be setting it during the Clone Wars, because again, you've kind of got like having a parallel with a character like Anakin Skywalker would be more fitting if that's kind of the overall arc they're going with Sora as someone kind of losing, like kind of getting kind of anger, kind of losing sight of that happiness, because, well, that's what happened to Anakin. Like, that would be an interaction I would want to see, is even if it was, like, not an actual boss fight, but just a cutscene of Sora having to fight Anakin and kind of seeing kind of himself. But I'm probably giving, you know, Square way too much credit, sort of thing.
And then Sora comes out of nowhere and says, "You were the chosen one!"
No, see, that's when Sora just gets the high ground.
He in fact gets the high ground. So we kind of have to wrap things up. But during all of this, I've actually been getting some comments from listeners who have been coming in and out on the podcast. Aptly enough, the question that they had asked, you already asked it yourself, was the connection between this and Union Cross / Key or Kai. So we kind of have that. And obviously some of us are following it. Some of us are really not. The next thing that gets brought up is when we did the worst Disney worlds. Oh, come on. Nobody has anything bad to say about 100 Acre Wood. No, not really.
No.
I mean, I would say it wasn't my favorite world just because of how much it was been used. And I'm kind of glad in Birth by Sleep, they just made it a command board. And I'm like, thank goodness, I don't need to go through it again.
And I didn't mind the mini games that happened throughout 100 Acre Wood. If anything, the nostalgia kind of kept me there.
Well, yeah, and plus with the 100 Acre Wood, since it is mini games, it's not required.
No, it's not horrible.
Unless you're trying to get those dang trailers. Well, unless you're playing on Proud Mode, because if you're playing on Proud Mode, you get them by default.
But I like doing it because I'm the completionist.
You are, in fact, but not Gerard the completionist. We have to avoid that. We have to avoid that copyright there. The next thing that I also obviously gets brought up is, seriously, everybody went for Demix. Does anybody have anything else bad to say about other organization members?
Zaldan's pretty uninteresting.
What was that? Oh, Zaldan?
Zaldan's pretty uninteresting. I don't know, like, what's.
I mean, I brought up Vexen because Derek Stephen Prince did the best that he possibly could have done with that character, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned Shion. I'm the only one who didn't mention Demix as their least favorite. So
I mean, I like Zigbar because he's like always calling Roxas kiddo.
Zigbar's like one of the best things that came out of the organization.
I love that
he feels like a Final Fantasy villain.
He was calling Roxas kiddo, and
yeah. So there you go. So I mean, I mentioned Vexen just because I to this day can't understand what Vexen was supposed to be doing aside from creating clones of Riku, and for some reason, those clones are canon, and we're actually going to be facing off against 3 versions of Riku in 3. No, I'm not kidding, people. The 3 versions of Riku are canon.
It's okay. There's tons of anthems, too.
So the next one that gets brought up is, so you guys all have love for the mainstream mechanic ones. Any thoughts or best or worse on the ones that have unusual mechanics, aka Chain of Memories? What can I say that hasn't already been said? Like, the card mechanics are dumb, but like I can make my way through them.
It was done better with Dream Drop Distance's Flick Rush.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting with even probably Chain of Memories is that most of the stories are kind of slightly different in a way, but for some reason, Atlantica was kind of more of a repeat of the same story.
Well, and to me, like, you know, if I had to take a pick of like the 2 most unusual ones, especially of the remakes, I like Coded more than I do Chain of Memories, just because Coded, at least the original mobile game, followed like a turn-based kind of deal.
Yeah, and at least with Chain of Memories, and I may be the odd one out saying this, but I honestly think the mechanic worked better with the original Game Boy release than it does.
I agree with that.
It probably
I totally agree with that.
Because when you're playing it in if you're playing it like Rechain of Memories, like on PS3 or PS4, you feel like you're used to, you know, mashing the buttons because you're just so used to that gameplay, but you got to get your mind out of that mindset, and it's more of a strategy of how you implement your cards.
Oh, yeah, and especially adding a third dimension to the combat, whereas in the original Game Boy release, it was just a 2D plane. It was easier. The gameplay didn't feel as strange because it set the tone right away of, hey, this is a different animal here. This isn't the same as the console versions. And just presentation-wise, it just worked better on Game Boy than it did with Rechain of Memories. I mean, yeah, having the voiced cutscenes and stuff is nice, but you run into that disconnect of, it's like, oh, well, it moves and plays similar to the other Kingdom Hearts games, but then there's this card mechanic shoehorned in for some reason.
It's okay. Yeah. Between the end of Kingdom Hearts 1 and the start of Chain of Memories, there's only a few hours where Sora hits puberty.
Yeah.
You know, when you...
Hey, he didn't have his lumberjack beard by then.
Actually, do you like the voice of when he was younger, just in Kingdom Hearts 1 versus like 2 or Chain of Memories?
I like his older voice.
I'm just so used to now the older voice. I cannot think of the younger voice anymore.
Well,
be like,
okay, so the final one that because unfortunately I don't want to go too long because we do need to get Art to bed.
True.
But the other thing that I also want to bring up is kind of a wrap up, and then we'll start wrapping things up. But when we brought up worst gameplay, nobody brought up the gummy ship. Really? Nobody brought up the gummy ship.
Well, Kingdom
you know
Hearts
what?
2
I'll give it to you on that one.
Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of fixed the gummy ship, though.
Yeah.
The 1 and 2 was better, but
Birth by Sleep was the best. No gummy ship whatsoever. And Keyblade motorcycles.
Maybe someday.
Can you tell me how it doesn't get better or worse than Keyblade motorcycles?
When's Sora getting his?
Yeah, that would be great.
And
and his own armor.
I want armor, and I want a return as an Obi-Wan Force Ghost of Hironobu Sakaguchi. I'm sorry, Ericus showing up and saying, "Sora, you have what you need," and then all of a sudden he comes out, and it's like Stan Bush's The Touch from Transformers the movie, and he's donned in his now new Keyblade armor.
So you're just basically saying, when he gets to have his final confrontation with Xehanort, he's going to go all clashing armor and start.
You got the power. This is the end of the road, Xehanort.
And he's dual wielding his Keyblades.
Now I'm hearing the song in my head. After all is said. Now I need to have this. Now somebody needs to make an AMV of this.
And just for some reason, my brain jumped from Transformers to like the ending of F-Zero Legend of the Falcon with the whole we've all seen the memes of the whole Falcon punch thing, but even just seeing kind of a moment like that, I'm like, okay, if they kill off Sora and that's how it goes out, I can kind of see it. But that would mean them introducing a new character to become the quote-unquote new Sora. Of course, I'm probably the only one who gets the reference because I have the vague familiarity of the ending of the F-Zero anime.
So at that point, I think the general consensus is you guys like the gummy ship, and I don't.
Yeah. 2 was definitely handled it better, especially making it not required to go from world to world, except for
I'll at least say that the 2 involved you more, and it looks like 3 is going down that route. But 1, oh my gosh, those were boring ass segments. They were horrible to make their way through.
Yeah.
But that's going to go ahead and do it for this podcast. So we thank you guys so much for joining us, discussing this, especially now that we hopefully have killed enough time that it is officially less than 24 hours that you can get your grubby, geeky little hands on Kingdom Hearts 3 and be able to start enjoying it. And now you don't have to avoid YouTube anymore because of all the Japanese spoilers that have been going through. So that thankfully is a good thing. But if people want to be able to get a hold of us to be able to ask us additional questions on Kingdom Hearts, as well as be able to ask additional questions on the podcast, and who knows, maybe post Kingdom Hearts, we'll do a little bit of an analysis and go over what we liked, what we didn't like. We'll leave that up to fate, as it were. But Andrea, how do people get a hold of you?
You can just get a hold of me through Facebook. It's Andrea Short Mickelson, or you can do Twitter, but I don't usually use Twitter as much, but it's AMS Mickelson.
All right. And then also, obviously, you do all the stuff with me on the channel. So you
basically,
check that out.
Yep.
You can specifically check out the playthrough of Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories that we're doing right now, where we like to call a lot of people dumbasses, and we also like to reference Sora's parking tickets.
And the famous line that we love to do is Sora, unzip your pants.
Sora, unzip your pants.
And don't worry, we will eventually get to 3 when everybody else has gone through their Let's Plays.
And we'll probably be making home record jokes by that point. The Kingdom Hearts 3 community has just given me such ammunition these many years. All right, Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube and on Facebook under Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle, and I do post to both Facebook and YouTube when I actually have something to post. You can also find me on Instagram under Romney Does Art, where I post pictures of food that I cook, cats, bagels, cats, occasional
Where's
gameplay
the art?
for Nintendo
Where's the art,
Switch games, and cats. And I'm also on Twitter under Romney Reviews, which is my handle on Twitter. Best way to send me suggestions, things for me to take a look at. Seriously, stop sending stuff to Adam. He's got 2 kids. Let's give the guy a break. So yeah, to reiterate,
technically this week I have 3 kids.
Yeah, point being, you've got enough on your plate. We have separate ways to get a hold of us. You don't need to send suggestions to Adam. I won't bite, not even if he asks me to, because I'm not into that sort of thing. So, to reiterate, Studio Ghost Utah on YouTube and Facebook, Romney Does Art on Instagram, Romney Reviews on Twitter.
And you can also check out the Gaming with Geeks that me and Stephen Romney do on the channel of Silent Hill, where the goal is to make Drac pee his pants. It hasn't happened yet, but it probably will.
Give it time.
Give it time. And then
we'll
the art
to
of
line the couch.
Exactly. The Art of Anime. How do they find you?
Well, if they want to find me directly after this, I'll be in my bathroom.
Why? You'll be conveniently anchored to your bed.
But as the old saying goes, you just search my name on YouTube, and there you go.
And it is literally The Art of Anime The Art of Anime YouTube, and you'll find him. I can confirm this. We've tried it live. It works. And also, obviously, I'm going to give you guys plenty of recommendations over to his channel because he's actually got a lot of really great analysis videos on anime. And I have a feeling since he has done analysis on Final Fantasy IX, we might have some other video game ones being done very soon.
Quite
that
possibly.
Will be exciting. Yay. I'm always excited for that. So you guys can check out his channel as well as all of the other podcasts for Why We Geek that he has done with us. Dude, what have we done with you? We've done JRPGs with you. We've done Warcraft. You were on that one. Nostalgic Anime. You were on that one as well. And now Kingdom Hearts. You are basically the Tetsuya Nomura of Why We Geek in 2018. We worked you to the bone.
Yeah,
and now we made him.
We just need a fifth topic so he can get the punch card. So he can get that fifth stamp and get the free coffee.
Exactly, or the free yogurt. I mean, seriously, like we need to do that for him. And then if people want to be able to get a hold of me, the best place to do so is Twitter, which is @Drac2326. You guys can ask me all the Kingdom Hearts related questions that you guys want, but I'm just going to go ahead and say this right here and now. If you ask me any questions about, well, Shion, I might just sit there and go, nope, not touching it. Nope, not touching it. If it's convoluted, I ain't touching it. And if you also want to send your spoilers, please don't do that, guys, because I have a feeling like all of us want to be able to enjoy this game as we go along, and then be able to make our opinions as we go as well.
I just thought it was not very awesome to see even somebody. I think somebody tried to put the whole entire game on YouTube, and I'm like, come on!
Like, why would you do that?
I mean,
some people hate fun.
Kingdom Hearts 3 was going to be the one exception that I was going to try to avoid as much spoilers as possible and experience the game itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if you watch it and then all of a sudden you play, it just took the magic out of it.
Yeah, exactly. This might actually be a Build a Better Geek reference or a Build a Better Geek topic on Geek News is like spoilers in games. Please don't do it. Or at least when you're doing YouTube videos, put like spoilers ahead for like a month. Yeah, and that way people know.
If you're considering posting spoilers, just remember what Harrison Ford said about The Force Awakens. Don't do that. Stop that.
Exactly. But yeah, if you want to be able to get a hold of the podcast directly and support that, first things first, we ask that you guys support the RSS feed, which is whywegeek.podomatic.com. And you can look up the Why We Geek podcast on iTunes and Google Play for Android users. You can also support the Why We Geek podcast on Twitter, which is @WhyWeGeek. For some reason, we can't get a Facebook page because Facebook hates me for some weird reason on Why We Geek. It just hates me. But as soon as we get one, we'll let you guys know. And then, of course, if you guys want to submit topics that we can discuss on Why We Geek Podcast, you can do so at whywegeek@gmail or whywegeekpodcast@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. We hope you guys all enjoy the end of the 7 to 14 year wait as Kingdom Hearts 3 releases. I already know that we're probably going to be digging ourselves a hole and just going through it in our own little pace, assuming we can get out of Resident Evil 2 first.
We would be basically bouncing back and forth to being scared to have an upgrade.
So this is going to be us for like the next couple of months.
Just hope that Square and Capcom don't step into an elevator together.
Yeah, never mind. Never mind. That won't work out. I was gonna say like you could do the city. No, you don't want to do the city.
No, I mean, the closest you would get would be another disappointing Parasite Eve spinoff without it being called Parasite Eve because they lost the rights to the novel.
Yeah. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for joining us. And obviously we'll be back next month for even more Why We Geek. We actually have a very special topic planned for that. So you guys can look forward to that very soon. But for me, for Andrea, for Stephen Romney, and for The Art of Anime, we will see you guys next time. And in the meantime, enjoy Kingdom Hearts 3.
We sure will.